Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming together to be a part of the inaugural meeting for the Governor's Work Zone Safety Group. I'm Aruna Miller, Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. This room includes subject experts in highway safety, and I know each of them have taken work zone safety seriously and are committed to developing solutions. I look forward to working in partnership with each and every one of you that is here today. In April, Governor Moore announced the Work Zone Safety Group that I chair the group. The urgent need to form a group dedicated to addressing work zone safety came after the high-speed crash on March 22nd, which resulted in tragic deaths of 6 Maryland highway workers. 6 lives tragically ended in a moment, and their loved ones' lives altered forever. It was one of the deadliest crashes since 1980s, but it wasn't unique. If you ask the individuals who work on these sites, they will tell you that the close calls are a constant on the job, and crashes are too. In fact, since the tragedy on March 22nd, there have been 145 work zone crashes on Maryland state roadways. In a recent study, Maryland highway workers, 46% said vehicles had collided into their work sites at least 3 different times, and 42% said vehicles had collided 5 or more times. 54% of Levin, Maryland respondents reported that more than one roadway worker died as a result of vehicular crashes. That's 54% that stated that. Our highway construction workers need urgent solutions. Our highway workers do the job for the American people to build vital infrastructure that we depend on every single day. They deserve to come home to their loved ones at the end of every single day. I worked for 25 years as a transportation engineer, so I personally know the tireless and challenging work that the men and women in the construction industry provide every single day while placing themselves in harm's way. We must look for new ways to improve and create an environment that protects roadside construction workers, our law enforcement workers, our drivers, pedestrians, cyclists. And that's why we're here today. Governor Moore and I believe that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. That's why in choosing this group, we selected industry experts in their field, members of law enforcement, highway engineers with decades of experience, and road workers who know what it's like to go to work every day on these sites. The group will be divided into 2 subgroups. One focuses on how our roadways are operated and how our work zones are set up. The other on how we can better educate drivers about what to do in work zones. We know that these 2 areas, driver education and roadway operations, are where the solutions lie for making Maryland roads safer for workers and motorists and passengers. Each of these subgroups will work collaboratively to put forth a comprehensive set of recommendations by the end of the year for how Maryland can reduce work zone crashes and keep our workers, drivers, law enforcement officers, pedestrians, cyclists, and passengers in vehicles safe. We will explore a broad range of potential solutions, including how we can increase driver awareness, how we can utilize the latest technology to increase work zone safety and enhance regulations and strengthen enforcement. Our administration will use the recommendations this group presents to develop and implement appropriate solutions. This issue has gone unaddressed for far too long and with devastating consequences. Governor Moore and I know that workers in our state need real solutions, and today begins the work to achieve those solutions. I would like now to introduce an expert who will serve as a leader in the work group, heading up our subcommittee of the Roadway Operations Subgroup. Deputy Administrator for the State Highway Administration, Terry Seuss.
Right. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. As Lieutenant Governor Miller mentioned, I'm Terry Seuss. I'm with the State Highway Administration. I'm Deputy Administrator for Operations here at our Hanover complex. So welcome to Hanover. Thank you so much for bringing this work group together. It is a very important topic. This group and the wide expertise that is represented here will allow us to continue and expand upon years of previous work that has been completed by many different groups and people. Because this is such a broad topic with many elements to consider, we are proposing to split the group into two subcommittees, as you mentioned. The first group will be led by Ms. Chrissy Nizer. Chrissy is the administrator for the Maryland Motor Vehicle Administration and Governor Moore's Highway Safety Representative. The group will focus on driver behavior. Chrissy will give an overview in a few minutes, but essentially this group will look at education, enforcement, and other ideas that can encourage drivers to make good decisions in our work zones. The second group will be roadway operations, which I will lead. This group will focus on planning, designing, and operating work zones, plus explore technology that may assist with these operations and potentially reduce worker exposure and risk. We will have 12 members on each team. It should be noted on your name tag, but if it's not, we will see one of us and we will help you, point you in the right direction. Shortly, we will have a demonstration outside, and after that demonstration, we will break up into the subgroups. The room will be split for the two groups to meet. Overall, for the work group, the Lieutenant Governor expects to hold about 4 meetings, with the final meeting and recommendations in mid-November. And the subgroups may meet separately in addition to that to work on their initiatives and recommendations. Do you have any questions on the subcommittees? None? Chrissy, thank you for joining us. Do you need a minute? I'm okay. All right. Well, then let me introduce Ms. Chrissy Nizer. She is the MVA administrator, as I mentioned, and Governor Moore's Highway Safety Representative. Chrissy will give an overview of the driver behavior work group.
Apologize for being a few minutes late. We were at the Digital Summit for the state of Maryland talking about some of the exciting innovations we're doing in that area, but such an important topic, and I really want to thank Lieutenant Governor and the governor for putting a focus on this area. We really want to have all great ideas on the table from a behavioral standpoint to really look at what is happening on the roads from a data standpoint, as well as what the current laws are that are on the books, and really try to determine what is the best course of action going forward. So we encourage you to, provide any suggestions that you may have so that we can really take a look at it. We see in terms of crashes and fatalities the same unfortunate things that we see otherwise in work zones, but it's more escalated, right? Because that work zone is narrowed. And so whether it's speed, whether it's distraction, those things are incredibly dangerous and, something that we've got to get the message out to the public about changing their behavior. At the Highway Safety Office, we've got a campaign about being the focus driver, and it really is about paying attention to what's going on. Your full time and attention should be on driving. It's not the time to be doing other things or trying to multitask, because frankly, it's not something that we do really well. And the result is, unfortunately, seeing those crashes on the roadway and those fatalities. Also, just encouraging folks to slow down. Speed has been up since the pandemic. We have seen drivers, maybe they were on the roads during the pandemic and not so many cars out there, and so they were traveling at a higher rate of speed. And as a result, they keep driving at that higher rate of speed, but now we have more vehicles back on the road. And so what you're seeing is, that opportunity, unfortunately, when a crash happens and individuals hit each other and they're traveling at that higher rate of speed, much more likely to be seriously injured or killed in that crash. And so, we all can just take these simple measures to help look out for each other, especially our highway workers who are doing that great work that we need to have done on our roads. We all want those improvements done. We want all the safety measures to be accomplished, and we can only do that by ensuring our highway workers are safe. And so we're really looking forward to working on this effort from the motor vehicle perspective, but also just from, the driver perspective. How can we change that perception? How can we make a difference and be that driver who saves lives, reaching that goal of zero fatalities, which is frankly the only acceptable goal that we can all agree on. So thank you for asking me to serve in this capacity, and really looking forward to, again, engaging and just bringing those fresh ideas forward. That's really what we need. We want to think about this from a different lens and see how we can make a difference. So thank you.
All right. So last October, MDOT hosted a Work Zone Safety Summit. Many of you attended, and so did many others. So we had approximately 75 people from across MDOT, Maryland State Police, and industry. There was a lot of great discussion, and several ideas have already been implemented. The ideas were condensed into 4 categories: driver education and public awareness, enforcement, planning, engineering, and operation of work zones, and technologies. The first 2 categories may benefit the driver behavior group, and the last 2 may offer a start to the roadway operations group. So we will hand out summaries when we break out into the sessions. And soon we will head outside for our work zone setup demonstration, courtesy of the State Highway Administration Glen Burnie Maintenance Shop. One of our chart trucks or emergency response vehicles will also be assisting, and then he will pull around in front of the building and set up as if he's responding to an incident on the roadway. So you'll be able to observe that and ask any questions of our operator, Devin. So for the demonstration, I'd ask that you consider a few things while they are setting up their operation. So first, for those of you who know our standards inside and out, we are mixing standards for this demonstration, so we're not looking to be graded on it. Second, this is mostly a controlled environment on a low-speed roadway in our complex. So envision a higher speed roadway with numerous vehicles and drivers, some paying attention, driving the speed limit, and making good decisions. However, we know that not every driver on the roadway does that at all times. So consider how this would be different for nighttime operations. And I want to thank Alan Myers for lending us a speed trailer for this demonstration. This alerts drivers to their speed. But please also consider how police enforcement or automated speed enforcement may also look and how it might be helpful. Third, the advanced warning signs and cones were placed yesterday, so this is acting as the second day of a lane closure. Consider the additional time and exposure for workers to place them the first day, as well as pick them up at the end. Setup and pickup are some of the riskier times for our workers. We have a protection vehicle or truck-mounted attenuator. These are more typical on higher speed roadways, so it may look a little out of place today. Again, it is a demonstration. These are struck frequently on our roadways and have likely saved many lives. Lastly, we call these operations maintenance of traffic, or MOT, meaning that we complete the needed work on the roadway or bridge, usually while maintaining traffic flow with minimal disruption. Should we be looking at this through a different lens? Should we give additional consideration to worker safety, possibly by detouring traffic or giving more of a buffer area between workers and traffic when that is reasonable? These are just some of the things I hope you observe and discuss within your subgroups. Are there any questions? All right. With that, we'll head outside and we will pause our meeting for the demonstration.
company, but she actually, was a flagger, started as a flagger. Yeah.
Is that
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, but here's the thing. I'm jealous. I want to go hold that. Our main concern is people have to be aware of their surroundings while they're flagging. Yeah.
Really honored to be able to serve in this capacity, and I'd love if each of you could introduce yourselves, because I think it provides context to the conversation, and as we're having future discussion, I think it'll be helpful for me to have a better understanding of everyone's background. So, Howard, would you like to start? You have a very important role. You have one of the most important roles in this whole process. So please.
Oh, come on. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Howard Bostic. I am employed by MDOT Chart. I am a emergency response tech senior. How y'all doing?
Thank you. Thank you for what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I am Jim Lardier with AAA Mid-Atlantic. We've done a lot of advocacy around road zone safety, slow down move over laws, and we are just happy to be a part of this committee on the driver behavior side. As we know, #1 issue.
Mike Sakata, MTV, President and CEO of Maryland Transportation Builders and Materials Association, represent the transportation industry. You saw those green lights outside on those trucks. We advocated for that past session. This is obviously core to what our members do. In my previous stop, I was also the head of the National Work Zone Safety Information Clearinghouse, responsible for providing all this material to you guys as well. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
My name is Greg Thompson. I am the facility maintenance tech out of District 4. My job is to be out there in those vehicles and those safety zones. So I'm happy to be here and hoping that we can make it a lot safer.
Thank you for what you do every day. I appreciate it.
Ron Sofford with the Maryland Transportation Authority Police, META. I'm the Patrol Division Commander and Commander by Ops Support.
Stephen Busey, State Highway Administration. I'm the Director of our Office of Construction. Office is right up above us here. So.
Hi, Linda Pufenbarker. I'm with MDOT SHA in the District 6 office, which is Western Maryland. I'm the Assistant District Engineer for Traffic in Western Maryland.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Ryan, I'm the Commander of the Maryland State Police Traffic Incident Management Section.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marshall Kleinfelter, President of Maryland Asphalt Association. Like MTBMA, we help with the green light legislation. It's a super thing. The eyes perceive it better. It's a win-win for us. And now we have to look at other ways that we can influence the driver behavior out there on the road. We just want to go home safe at night.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brett Jeffers, and I'm with the Federal Highway Administration Maryland Division, and I'm the Operations and Safety Program Manager in the office. And I work very closely with our partners at MDOT SHA and also NBA, Maryland Highway Safety Office, to implement projects and programs to reduce fatalities and serious injuries and also increase mobility.
Hello everyone, I'm Janet Cronke. I am the President and CEO of Sunrise Safety Services. If you don't know, we're a traffic company. We do traffic control. So we are so honored to be part of this committee, and we look forward to making changes.
Got some of our team hiding in the back if we can introduce themselves.
Oh, hi, I'm Chris Tizak. I am the Operations Manager for the Hanover Complex. I work for Terry Seuss, the Deputy Administrator.
Hi everybody, I'm Tim Kearns. I'm the Director of MDOT NVA's Highway Safety Office. We oversee the Highway Safety Program funds from National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Sean Noon, Chief of Staff, and I work for Ms. Nizer at the NVA.
Well, again, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to be here. In the highway safety community, we often talk about it's through partnerships so we get things done, and I think that really is reflected in your background and your experience. experience, and I just want to reiterate, everything's on the table, right? Lieutenant Governor has given us a clear charge, come up with new and innovative ideas of how we can make a difference to that experience that you're referring to in terms of being out there every day. So what you have here that was just handed out that might be helpful just in terms of background is a Work Zone Summit that happened last year in October. Some ideas that came up, obviously not all inclusive, but from the folks who attended this, thought this would be helpful context just in terms of getting the conversation started so that you can have this information. Obviously, it does focus on what we call the various E's of highway safety. So from engineering to education to that enforcement piece. And then obviously we never want to leave out our emergency services because that's an important component of it as well. And we're so fortunate in Maryland to have such strong services. So that's a great piece of material that you can take with you and just read that over before our next meeting. That would be great. And we'll also send some information, I think, just in terms of what does the crash data say. Tim's really instrumental in terms of guiding us and making sure we're doing data-driven decisions. That's always important, right? We want to make sure we're responding to what the data says so that we're actually addressing the true problems. So we'll make sure that we send you some information just in terms of what the data looks like and what that tells us in terms of maybe where we should focus. I talked a little bit about that in my remarks in terms of, frankly, some of the same issues that we see just in crashes in general. It's just, amplified when you're in that work zone because it is tight and, individuals are right there outside of a vehicle exposed and in obviously very precarious situations. And so, we just wanted to start off and just ask kind of a few questions in terms of what your initial thoughts are coming into this. I'd love to start off with our folks that have firsthand experience being out on the roadway because you all see it every day and you're putting yourselves at risk being out there. So maybe we could start with you all and hear a little bit about what it feels like to you, what you see in terms of that dangerous driver behavior, and maybe then we can try to figure out where we go from there.
Being out there, it's very different, especially when I first started. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but like you said, over the years, it's gotten even worse. And when you're out there, especially setting up, that's the hardest part because that's when you're actually taking that lane, so you still have traffic in the other lanes. In that lane as you're going down. It's pretty scary, and you get it done, but trying to keep traffic going in the direction you want is the problem. So, the biggest thing is people not paying attention and the speeds.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. So in that setup, it's not, you don't have everything in place kind of the way we saw it in the demonstration, so it's kind of in a mixed environment.
But at the same token, as you're pulling, you're laying out your barrels, and you're still open. And you're on the side, you're right not there. Actually blocked by the truck because you're dropping them off from the side and setting up. So you're still out with traffic.
Makes a lot of sense. So that setup, what that looks like, sounds like that's a key component of what we should be discussing going forward. Other thoughts?
Well, I agree with Greg because I spent 15 years in perfect maintenance shop and 10 plus with Chart. So it's just the difficulty of trying to, on our position, we set up the same way as a work zone safety, but we don't use signs. Right. We get there and take a lane for Fireboard and MSP so they can do their jobs, and we put out our taper, and that's the most dangerous part. Once you first get there, and you get out of the truck, you got it lit up, you got the airboard pushing to the right, to the left. Either way, what lanes are down. And the most scariest part is putting them cones behind the truck and then trying to go taper it off and all like that. Because I'm going to just tell a quick story. Sure. About 4 or 5 months ago, we had a little misty rain and, MSP and Chart took over the JFX all the way down Fair Street. So we had one accident in Cold Spring, we cleared that up. So my shift partner had to go on the Beltway and they sent me down for a 1050 rollover where the vehicle rolled over several times. So I get there, Baltimore City Fire Department there, I set up everything. And just as I go around the truck to talk to the lieutenant from the Baltimore City Fire Department, boom! The guy hit my truck at 70 miles an hour. And all you saw was van parts come over top of the truck. He hit the truck so hard, he shifted. And it's just scary. Every time you get out of that truck, or even on the shoulder, changing the tire, or giving somebody gas, once you get out of that truck, it's in your mindset. I mean, that feeling come over you, and you got to keep your head on the swivel. Just like when any other contractors that do what we do, you got to keep your head on the swivel. Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, you're out there helping people, and in the meantime, you're taking your own life at risk as you're trying to help others who are having emergencies on the road. I know Move Over was mentioned, and certainly these are all related topics, right? Because it's about our first responders being out on the road, our highway workers being out there.
Not to cut you off,
please.
And our boss's chart, they came out with the mudflaps. Move over, it's the law. And as I noticed out there, most of the commercial drivers, they get over. Box truck, 18-wheelers, they will get over. Some of the traveling public will get over. But I was just on 295 southbound at the Beltway, helping disabled road that broke down. No, that was the day in lane 1. So I set my cones out, and every time MSP get there, the people start acting right. They really, truly start acting right. But when I'm there by myself, and I call for a troop, and they get there quick as they can because they got a lot going on too. So I'm putting the cones out, going around, and the guy said, well, my tow truck said they about an hour away. I said, well, we can't wait an hour. Best case scenario, I'll go around, hook up to you, and get all of us over to the right shoulder. But MSP showed up, and people started acting right. And then his tow showed up. It said an hour, and it only took 15 minutes. And that was just a good story. The quicker we get there, the quicker we take care of the problem, the quicker we get out of the roadway, the better off I feel. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for sharing that perspective. It's so critical. So, MSP, we hear when you come, that's right. But unfortunately, we still hear about our state troopers being hit, and our law enforcement being hit, right? So I'd love to hear that perspective, and then also our contractor partners, to hear your perspective as well in terms of what you're seeing out there. Definitely hearing speed and setup, 2 themes so far.
Well, I think from the driving behavior part, the couple parts. So we can surmise that the number one causation of any crash is it's either the road's wrong, the car's wrong, or something's wrong with the operator, or a deer ran out front. It's difficult when we investigate collisions. We weren't in the vehicle. We usually show up afterwards. So if somebody was texting on their phone, typically they're not going to give us that. Oh, the car in front of me stopped short, and I tried to stop, and I hit the car. Well, because there's something going on in that car that took their attention away from traffic slowing. So that's number one causation. The second causation, clearly, speed. So those 2 factors involved, if with all the dangers you got out there, somebody that's not paying attention, traffic slowing in front of them, they look up, and we're going to have that centralized in a work zone more than anything else, because we either have to taper a lane, we have to take the lane down. So concentrating on those 2 factors for the behavior part, I think is a crucial aspect for being here, because ultimately, CHART and law enforcement, we put ourselves out in dangerous situations, but I was on the scene of that collision on 695. I can put the actual people. It's not just 6 people. It's six people I saw and families I talked to. So humanizing that, I think, what the SHA did with the memorial ride, I think it's a good reminder, but I think it has to keep going, so that it just keeps getting the point made. So it's not just once a year we're trying to remind the public, it's continuously. And I think if we can continuously put that that message out there, there's some people we're never going to reach, but there's a lot. And I'll close with this. We have the automated work zones that are there, and they're catching cars, at 115 miles an hour. Just zero regard for anybody, much less the construction zone personnel that are, trying to keep the roads open. So we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work.
I definitely think that education area is something that we want to come back to, because we always struggle with how do you get the message out without getting fatigue in terms of people not paying attention to the message. And so, as we were talking about earlier, it feels like the folks who already understand it are the ones who are more receptive, and then maybe the ones who are driving 118 miles an hour down the road aren't the ones that were able to make an impact with. So definitely want to come back to that education piece and hear any thoughts. From a BT perspective, I'm sure you see the exact same things. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like
Absolutely,
to.
I agree with everything that LT said, and then it's funny to hear Chart put this all in perspective. It has gotten worse over the last year. Speeders have been always speeders since the beginning of the time, right? But it just seems like obviously between the pandemic and now, things have totally shifted in the wrong direction. And then I watch you guys are crazy putting those cones out. I ain't gonna lie. I got lights on and everything. I'm like, man, you know what I mean? But just watching them set up or take the setup away. Everybody's just waiting, and they're just seeing them. They can't wait fast enough for the guy to get the last cone off so they can get behind them. So it really is something. The LT hit it with the distraction. People are just doing yeah, the car, yeah, the deer, but it's really the person. And you'll see them driving a car. Before you used to sneak and look at your phone and check your text messages. Now you'll see people straight up with the phone right in their face, looking in all type of zones, construction zones, school zones, just regular driving. So, like the LT said, we got a lot of work to do. I'm glad we're having this committee. It's needed. I think it should be more. I know I saw October 2022 of last year. Unfortunately, we had the major incident on 695, but it's something that we have to come, because this is ground zero. It seems like we're starting all over again, which I don't understand why, but it seems like we are. And we've got all the right people in the room, it seems like, from the two different groups. So I know, so some other people in the back, but yeah, I think this is needed. Education, we always talk about education communication, right? And then you start going, we're the last resort, supposedly. We're supposed to be the last resort. Before you get to us, it should be a whole bunch of other things that happen, literally, from the flag or others to your story out there, until they get to us. So we'll see. I'm positive thinking with this.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's why we all have to approach it, right? I mean, that's the only way we get to zero is, taking those additional steps. But y'all have me thinking already about, we need to better define what a work zone is for the general public. Like, do they even understand getting the cones out? That is the start of the work zone, right? Do they really understand? You all as professionals know what that looks like and each of the technical steps that you're going to take and why you're doing that. But I wonder if the general public does. If we
and
did
prior to the work zone, because that's also the most important part. Yes, once you're in the zone, you're already committed.
Right.
But prior to getting into that zone is almost equally important. And what that definition is, that's a good one there. Or make them understand that they can palate, like, oh, okay, I get it.
And from a contractor's perspective, we've been hearing same things. Obviously, speed, distracted driving, aggressive driving. We have wanted more of a focus on some of the MSP or these folks before the taper, before the work zone starts. Before that, so that folks do have some time to slow down. We talk about these guys who are speeding 100 miles an hour. You put work zones, you try to reduce the speeds of those, and you do have that small percentage of folks who would actually obey the law and drive 45, 55 miles an hour, and then you get rear-ended now by somebody who's driving 80 miles. So yeah, absolutely, COVID, all these things played a huge part. We've seen speeding not slow down now with phones, now with everything else, and now with more and more vehicles coming on the roads, it's a chaos. And I'm sure Janet can talk a little more about that and what you guys are seeing.
It is very scary being out there and setting up. Since I've done it many years ago, I come to find that the quicker you can get that lane out, the safer you're gonna be. You just don't wanna be out there being slow and, get it right, ride it. If it isn't right, you can tweak it, but get it out and get out of there. I've had many experiences. Some of my employees have been hit. Thank God we haven't had any fatalities, like that. But damaging people, I mean, I can remember the first time I worked on 270. I jumped up into the arms of the girl I was working with because the tractor trailer was this close to me. I mean, you're in a work zone, and he was flying. So that was way back when. I can't imagine working on the road right now. I mean, I would be petrified. Both of my children worked on the road. So it's very scary. I think I would love my grandson to come, but then I think, no, I don't want that.
But it shouldn't have to be that way, right? I mean, it's an important profession that we want to encourage folks to be in, and if that's the sense of it, it's so dangerous, we're not going to get those.
And I believe that it comes from us, okay? We all know people. You have to tell them. I was driving, my sister was behind me, was a vehicle there, and, I didn't pull over. She's driving, well, when we got home, she got yelled. The law is get over or slow down. And, sometimes you slow down and people get mad at you, but if they don't have anywhere to go, they have to slow down as well. So you don't want to make them mad where they're going to shoot you these days.
Yeah, you're right.
So you have to be mindful of that, I'm sorry to say, but
Yes.
it's true. But I think we can get to some of these people. I believe it should start in driver's ed. I think driver's ed should definitely talk about work zones. I didn't pay attention to signs until I worked for Sunrise Safety Services. It didn't even dawn on me, what's that? So I think we have to educate the new drivers. And in my opinion, it would be nice if everybody before they got their license could work in a work zone. I know that's not possible, but they would understand where we're all coming from.
So one thing that we could do, and it's funny because I just had this conversation with the Maryland Motor Truck Association because they have the same concerns about folks not understanding large vehicles. They're actually talking about partnering with the Driver Ed Association to have folks in the community come out to the driving schools and to talk about that no zone and the experience. So if it's something the industry is interested in, I'd love to make some connections with our Driver Ed community. And I know you can't get every school and every class, but it is an opportunity before somebody gets out on the road to start that conversation. So maybe that's a good takeaway. I mean, you have, industry in every jurisdiction.
Or even a simulator. Being out there in the middle of the night with 70-mile-an-hour trucks passing you at a foot wakes you up, and you can take a camera out there with you, and you put a student driver in a simulator where they are encased in video screens, and they see how close, and then you tell them that guy was only doing 45 miles an hour. Now let's turn it up a little bit. And sort of a scared straight for driver's ed. I mean, there's more than one way to reach it.
Okay, so as a takeaway, we'll pull out what's in the curriculum today and share that with everybody so you can take a look at it and make some suggestions, and then we'll do some follow-up about. Because I think hearing from you all, hearing these stories directly, to me, that's always what makes the most impact, right? I mean, it's about people at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, and I wanted to give, I guess, just not an example, but one of the ways that Federal Highway can help out with the, I guess you could say, the epidemic of speeding that's going on is that from the recent bipartisan infrastructure law, some of the requirements and other things with the Highway Safety Improvement Program were loosened. One of the biggest things was that speed safety cameras are now eligible for using HSIP funding. Now, all the other federal regulations have to be satisfied, like Buy American procurement. But if the state is looking to expand their programs for speed enforcement, it's federally eligible under the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And also, some of the other previous restrictions, we can now fund education and outreach and also some enforcement activities through HSIP. So, some of the restrictions have been lifted, and with using HSIP, we can expand, some of the automated enforcement activities. I know we already provided, funding for law enforcement on the project, and also through, I know through CHART, we provide funding for safe routes. But when it comes to speed cameras, we can definitely participate in that.
Is that different from the SS4, that Safe Streets for Roads for All?
Yes, that is different. That's a grant program, but through the formula program, Highway Safety Improvement Program.
The funding is SHA. There's a formula for each jurisdiction, and they're authorized to use, SHA is authorized to use that for certain activities that are governed by federal highways. So that sounds like Brett's saying it's much broader now, and speed cameras are one of the authorized use of it.
We can talk about that. Explain SS4 more. Yeah, just
And I'd love for you to, I know we have to wrap up in a few minutes left. I feel like we're just getting started. So definitely, it's just the beginning of the conversation. What we'll do afterwards, we'll reach out with some of the follow-up as well as trying to schedule a next meeting. I know the larger groups will meet less frequently, but we'll probably meet more frequently, even if it's online, if that works better for folks. I'm not sure where geographically located, but I want to make it convenient for everybody. Sharing some of these resources, I think, is really important. And so if there are things that are happening in other states that are innovative, I'd love to hear about that. I don't know if that's something, whoever has those kind of things, bring them forward, please. You know, FHWA might be seeing some things, but if our contractors are as well, I'd love to hear about that.
I'm gonna just say, I just came back from South Carolina.
Okay.
I love the signs they have. It says, let them work, let them live. I'm telling you, I start crying, I get emotional, right? I said, I gotta take this home. Is that a way we can do that and get stuff like, I mean, it really struck, you know, it's true. These people come out here to work, which everybody complains about, or they're complaining about the road's not right, or, you know, well, you have to get it done. And think about us, let them work, let them live.
Are those on the overhead signs that they have that up?
It's
Variable.
in the middle of the whole setup. So you can have, you know, road work ahead, or right lane, half mile, and then it'll say, and it's got that, you know, the little symbolic. But I just thought that was a really neat one. Another one, up in New Hampshire, when you ride through their work zones, they have VMS boards telling you to alternate traffic. To me, that would make it so much easier, but people don't get it. They gotta all speed up, you know. If you just did that, traffic would flow. And it flew. It did very well. So, I mean, that's another option to think about, is you wanna keep traffic moving when you're setting up, because that makes people mad. And then once they're past it, they're flying.
But that goes back to courtesy, right? That's the whole reason why it doesn't work, right? And that's something, you know, almost all the things that we may get complaints about traffic-wise, it all boils down to, it seems like obviously speeding and all that, but it's courtesy, just the common courtesy of driving. And that's where all the problems start. Yeah, even the road rage, you think about what the really reason of a road rage incident is, it came back to a courtesy issue. You did something I didn't like, or you got in front of me, you know, that's a lot of it. And that's, the driver's ed really got me going. I'm just curious of what a lot of stuff is taught there, but what you're saying, if everybody does that, it goes so fast, right?
I mean, I try to, when I'm driving through work zones and stuff, real nice, you let people over. I mean, people have lost that. Everybody wants to be up front first. I tap my brakes when they let me over, I wait, you know. Them people, they start doing it. You see them do it. I just think we have to be the leaders for them to follow.
Well, I will say the situation with the driver's ed and all that, that might be a great idea because I don't know, when I got my CDL license, I just felt like I understood a lot better than before. Like I said, when I came to State Highway, that's when I started really opening my eyes and understanding. Before that, I drove differently. And now I drive like understanding the signs and knowing, why wait till the last minute to get over if you got a sign a mile and a half back, let you know to start moving over. And I think a lot of people don't have that, and I don't know. I just think it was different. The CDL test versus the regular license.
I think the driver education part is a good idea, because we touch on something you said earlier about the public knowing what a work zone look like, signs and stuff. I think, and I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I think not half, but most of them don't know what a construction sign is or a borough. Because when we get calls to go get something out of the roadway, we got that thing in the roadway with white stripes on it. And that's what our dispatch get. So they'll put 2 and 2 together as a borough or cone, and they give it to us and we go get it. Like, if you put people like that mock demonstration out there and let them drive up and down the road, a real lane closure, and then you stop them and say, what did you see? I ain't see nothing. But people out there. And that's probably what they would say, because they don't pay attention to the signs or the taper or nothing like that. But the education part of it is, I would like to be there and ask all the students before they get their license. I say, when you go on road trips with your mother and father, they got a set destination, right? Yes. Okay, what do they use to get to that destination? You look at the overhead signs, and you look at your mile markers, you get to your destination. But it seems like when it comes to lane closures and us, they don't look at none of that.
Well, I think you all would be a phenomenal advocates with our new drivers, and it is so important. We just actually did some education for our driver license examiners about move over and construction zones and all of that, because they're running into it, right? There's more construction out there, and so how do they handle, with a new driver in the car, how do they handle that situation? I know they want us to wrap up because we're going to get back together, so look for a few follow-ups from us. We'll share the driver ed information as well as what's in the driver manual. We'll make sure we send you all the crash data so you have that information. And then we'll probably send out a poll just to try to figure out what works best for everybody prefer remote meetings in person. We would do a few of each. Sometimes face-to-face communication is worthwhile, but I know for a convenience standpoint, it might be easier to do something remote. Any thoughts?
Face on face. I'm tired of
COVID. Okay. Very good.
Like being with people and getting to know them. I don't feel like you can do that online.
Sounds good. All right. We'll make sure we try to get schedules aligned. That's always the challenge. But hopefully it's at least sparked some thoughts. And when we get back together, we'll have some more time just to talk about our specific, how do you influence that driver and that driver behavior. So that's the focus of the next conversation. Again, I just want to thank you all for being willing to be a part of this. And for those of you out there every day, thank you for what you do. We are so reliant on each and every one of you. Are we coming back?
John Tyson, Brown State Police, State Highway Administration Liaison.
Corinne Bruce with Sunrise Safety Services.
I'm Regis Saavedra with State Highway, Office of Highway Development.
Blair Jones, Federal Highway Division Office.
I'm Jim Harkness with the Maryland Transportation Authority.
Cedric Wood, with the State Highway Administration.
Mike Higgins, I'm the General Manager for Concrete General.
Miguel Rosado from Concrete General, MLT Division.
Mr. Khan, and Bob Sedler, State Highway Administration.
Excuse me.
You're up there.
Oh, hello. I'm Erica Gregg. I work in the Office of Transportation and Mobility Operations. I'm one of the district office managers. Thank you.
Eric Rockwell, I'm the team leader at Westminster.
Joan, before you start, I wanted to just introduce this group. This is one of State Highway's lead programs. And this group independently decided to work zone safety. So we invited them here today because I'm sure they have lots of great ideas to offer us. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
John Gover, ADE Construction District 3.
I'm Dylan, I'm a newspaper reporter.
This is why we want everyone to self-identify. No, I'm just kidding.
Hi, Rachel Clark, Evans and Associates.
How you doing? Sean Casey with Allen Myers.
How you doing, Daryl Sutherland with Allen Myers?
Safe Fertility, the Governor's Legislative Office.
Good afternoon, everyone. Danny Lang at the Senate President's Office.
Leanne Jenny, Senior Construction Inspector with KCI Technologies.
Asheville area with Speaker Adrian Jones.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. So we are the Roadway Operations Subcommittee. We're expected to look at planning, designing, and operating our work zones, as well as some of the new technology, existing technology, new technology, things we're not consistently implementing. I'd also like to talk about some of our best practices. As I mentioned before, we did hold a work zone safety summit last fall, and one of the things we noticed is that there's potentially gaps in information sharing. So sometimes we know about things, but they're not consistently implemented. And I will say some groups have best practices they have kind of developed over the years. It's not necessarily part of our standards. But it is something that maybe others could benefit from. So I'd like to talk about best practices and our standards, and how, for me, I would like to know how, if standards need to change, or if we want to leave that open to the situation. So absolutely not every situation can be captured within the standards. So do we leave that open to the expert employees out in the field who can make those decisions there, or do we try and be more prescriptive in our guidance so that we get that consistency for driver expectation, as well as not leaving it to one person who's experienced and makes one decision, perhaps someone who's not as well trained or doesn't have as many years of experience makes a different decision. Some of the things I'd like to talk about, but any other initial thoughts, ideas, or things we should tackle as a group? Sean, if I get something.
No, I'm kind of like I tried to show up today thinking a little bit out of the box. I think I could speak for the other contractors that are in the room and John and the groups that deal with traffic, like how much stuff can we put out there, and we're trying to control two groups of people, right? We're trying to control the driver behavior. We're also trying to control worker behavior. And I was walking in, and I appreciate the demonstration that was done out there today. One of the thoughts that I had coming in was it was really calm, right? And if anybody has been out on a work zone while we're setting up traffic, it's anything but calm. People are blowing their horns. We only have so much time as a business to put our what I'll call revenue into place, right? And we have to compete to do that, low cost, and it's stressful for everybody. And it was like a missing element out there. When I think of like some of the things that may hold us back as an industry, I go to even the delivery process of projects, right? How are we picked for most projects? Lowest bidder, right?
Yes.
And And to be low bidder, you know, you have to be fast at what you do, so you have less time on the job, right? And you tend to do what you have to do to lower your cost, right? It kind of goes against what we may need to do to make a substantial shift in what is happening out there, you know? So one of the things I came today with was the potential of looking at a different delivery process on projects that may include, technical safety, submitting, like, how are we going to maintain, like, maybe, Terry said, using, our expertise as contractors, as engineers, to say, hey, we want to build a project, not only lowest cost, but also safest way, and have more than just the cost to be considered, what are we gonna do to keep our workers safe? What are we gonna do to keep the traveling public safe and focused? Some of the things that were running through my mind as I was standing out there watching.
Great.
So.
Anyone else? Mike?
I would like to challenge the group to go strap on a hard hat and come out with us. And let's go out on an interstate. I know our rep over here from MSP sees it every night. This guy here sees it every night. We've got folks back in the room, the same things. We got Sunrise in with us. They're setting up in some of the most dangerous zones that anyone could think of. I'm not just talking a work zone, I'm just talking a zone. And to go out and strap a hard hat on and see what our folks have to do before you think you're ready to sit in here and adopt change or make change. So there's, at the safety forum we had, I think one of the MSP reps there said, let's just detour traffic. That is by far the safest way. Get the traveling public away from our folks. I know we can't do that, but I think really for us to realize what we're faced with, we've got to go get exposed to it. So we've got crews going out every night, different spots. I know Myers does too during the day. Nighttime on the beltways is a different world. I'm sure you can speak to that as well. If you've had a trooper get hit here last week. We had a TMA hit, same location. This is a little bit farther around 495, rear-ended during night. So what do we do as a group to sit in here as we all wear, suit coats and our ties and our fluorescent lights? Let's go out and see what we're doing and get a little better idea. I mean, Terry, I think that would be good for the driver behavior group as well, so they can go out and see what we're actually having to deal with. It's not 55 miles an hour. It's not 65 miles an hour. It's plus 80, plus 90. It is people weaving in and out. It's people on their cell phones. I mean, it's very rarely if you've got somebody with you on the driver's side, have them look out the window and look as you go, people go past you and you go past people, what they're doing. I don't think it's probably less than 70% that don't have that phone in their hand looking while they're driving. And that's what we're faced with. So how we change behavior is important, but making sure that we can enforce, but first seeing what we're dealing with here as a group. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks in the room that haven't been out on an interstate at night, even during the day, and get on the shoulder and see what it's like.
Yeah.
So that would be a challenge, I think, for this group to, let's go out maybe before our next meeting. But we've got work zones. We can take you to one of ours. Myers has work zones up on 95. Blair, you see them across the state. Jim, you've got them. Cedric, you know where they all are. And let's go pick a work zone or two, maybe with a small group from, everybody who's here. And let's go to a work zone and come back and report to the group how you felt out there in the work area, in the work zone.
Everybody on board with that?
Yeah, I have one more comment. Mike said like detour and we can't. And I think we need to remove we can't from the ideas. I'll give you an example. We were working in Delaware on I-95 for Kiewit. We were a paving sub, and it was the 95 section through Wilmington, very busy section. We looked at the job, we didn't feel like we could pave it safely. with the on and off ramps and everything else. If anybody's familiar with the section, it's curvy and it's got a lot of on and off ramps, you know. A year before we were going out there, granted, this is a planning process for us as a contractor. We said, hey, can we detour traffic? And, you know, DelDOT said, well, we have a year to figure it out. Let's try it, you know. And we did. We detoured traffic. And John, we laid 20,000 tons. It took a month. How long does it typically take a contractor to lay 20,000 tons?
A long time.
About a month of 5 days a week,
Right.
1,000 tons a day with 20 shifts, right? Well, in 4 weekends, you know, we laid the same amount. It was, you know, 5,000 tons a weekend, which was, you know, working.
So you over the weekend?
Yeah, weekend closures, Friday night, and we notified the public. So, you know, the can't became it possible as long as it was planned out properly, right?
So let me ask you,
What
Sean,
we're doing on 95.
how did you have a year, how were you involved with the contract and you had a year to plan it out?
So it was a long-term job. It was, the project was, certain stages get designed and accepted as the project's being built. So, you know, as part of the contracting team, we were part of all of that design and acceptance and ideas, phases, you know, so.
So you were involved in the planning and the constructability and all
Yep,
that? Okay.
exactly.
So there was contractor input, okay. John?
We've been doing traffic drags when we're setting up the lane closures to make it safe for everybody on 95, 495. And everybody thought I was crazy when I put out that we were gonna take a double on 495 at 8 p.m. and a triple at 9. It's increased your productivity for 40%.
Yeah, and and the double, the important thing about the double is that there's a buffer lane between our workers and, you know, the open lane of traffic.
And we can do anything, we just gotta be willing to stand behind it and give enough notice. We gave a month's notice to the community and we haven't gotten one complaint. And we have 2 contractors working in the same area and we're going from 29 to 50 and shutting 95, the ramp at 95 and detouring it around. And it works.
How much backup you guys seen on the beltway?
I'm not worried about it.
That's the right response.
It was Mike, when you, on 270, we did it. I didn't worry about it then either.
Back it up and
Actually, I pulled the data because I talked with John, was that last week?
Yeah.
And it actually hasn't been that bad. It looks like a 2 to 3 mile few, we pulled a few nights.
Normally, right when we first started, when we did the first detour on 95, it backed up to 212 for like 45 minutes, and then it broke loose.
People figure it out, don't they, Cedric? They don't wanna go sit in traffic. They go someplace else.
Waze tells you everything way around it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So my concern is once the traffic's cleared out and you have no backup, now we're talking danger zone, 70, 80, 90.
Actually, and picking up the work zone, because that's when the officer was hit on that job. It was at 4:30 in the morning picking up the work zone.
Right. So one thing I know from my experience being with state police is these speed cameras, people slam on their brakes for these speed cameras. They know they're there, they see all the warnings, they see the signs saying how fast you're going, and then they look for the porta potty and they look for the guy sitting in the Jeep, or the girl sitting in the Jeep, whoever. My problem is that truck and porta potty are stationary throughout the entire work zone, the time frame. So they know where it is after 2 or 3 times traveling. They know to slam on their brakes and then they get it up again. You know, first of all, I don't particularly like someone sitting in a Jeep by themselves. We've always had problems with that. Second of all, I like the technology of that works. People know it's there, they slow down, and you can see it. Why don't we put those speed cameras every half mile through the work zone, every quarter mile through the work zone, and educate people and let them know this is happening all the way through the work zone. We can't control their speed once they pass, once they get up to the work zone. We're worried about the workers and our people, our troopers and the workers in the work zones. This technology works. We know it works. troopers going out to enforce these things, we have an operation going, that works as well. These cameras are, in my opinion, 100%. There's no, and people know technology when they look at the video or the camera. Most of the time, they either pay the ticket or they let it go. But the speed cameras are definitely my opinion, are the home run. I mean, people know it. If we put those every half mile, every quarter mile through the entire work zone, I think the speeds won't go high because people don't want those speed cameras.
We've also brought out speed trailers on our job on 95 and 495. And the perception of the workers and our inspectors is they're slowing down. And we're moving them every night. They're not in the same spot.
Prince George's County has these speed cameras that are on trailers, 2 wheels. You park them, the four legs come down and stay stationary. The probe goes up for radar, and they can move them around anywhere they want. I don't know why we can't move those. I mean, we're setting up cones, we're pulling out aero boards, we're dropping those off. I mean, just another set of those through. I think, you're going to get a lot of safety involved when we have that. And all we're doing is taking a trailer technology type thing that's no bigger than, 5x5 with 2 wheels on it. Drop it, set it up, have the signs saying that there's speed cameras throughout the work zone. I mean, I think that's something.
So that is something we just spoke with Lieutenant Governor about previously, but the legislation right now is that it is a manned deployment for automated speed enforcement. So that is something we will continue to work on.
I'm certain that the subcommittees are already working on it as far as cost. I do agree with the gentleman, the state trooper, in reference to the cameras. I feel as though that the consequences for the cost is not enough. And I feel as though it should cost you to be dangerous. I just wanted to know whether or not there are any business processes, and I'm certain that there are, and talks and development in reference to really having a significant dent in the amount of money that you are charged when you choose to be dangerous. Because the way I see it, it's a choice. You're making a choice to being dangerous, and we need to be able to be very safe out here. People should have the right to come home to their families. So I was just wondering if there is any way that, be it with partnering with MVA as far as your license being removed, revoked, points, and the cost is so significant until you just can't afford to do it anymore, then I think that is a way to really driving it home, making people pay for being dangerous.
Agreed. So I think those are discussions that Chrissy and her group are having over in the driver behavior side of things. But agreed, and I just know from previous conversations and some of the legislation that's been proposed in the past that is a component, and for that to be right now it's a fee, right, because it's not associated with the driver. For that also to have points on your license potentially. So those discussions are happening. So thank you.
So the speed cameras deal with speed. Okay, now we're talking about what do we do about drunk driving, right? So he or she's not speeding, most likely maybe, because they really are so impaired that they really can't drive at a higher speed, that they're conscious enough and they know, hey, I'm going too fast. But now they're not aware of what's going on in front of them. So my next suggestion is, I remember years ago on the big bridge, we had these the jersey barriers. It was a machine that would drive down and it would move the jersey wall over. I don't even think they were concrete. I think they were plastic. They might have been even filled with water. I understand from a contractor's point of view that's going to take a lot more cost, because now you got to have tractor trailers bring that equipment in, and then you have to take it down at the end of the work zone. But I think setting that up, as opposed to maybe the cones, again, I'm not.
Yeah, the positive protection, great thing. So that we've gotten a demonstration on the movable barrier. It is a cost. A lot of it's just shipping it into the state of Maryland for all that concrete barrier. But yes, absolutely something we should consider on certain jobs. But we won't get all.
Right.
We have about 10 minutes left. Are there any other comments?
Quickly, going back to speed. Does the state of Maryland have any plans or have they implemented any speed over time systems for automated speed enforcement?
Cedric, can you answer?
We've been talking with your colleagues, Jawad, about that very thing.
Okay.
Point-to-point deployment, so it's not a site specific, it would be over a corridor or longer segment.
Does Maryland state law allow for that?
I believe so, and I casually ran it through our attorney's office, and they didn't, but that's something we'll investigate, but I don't think as it's written, and I'm not a lawyer or attorney, I don't think our law precludes it. But there are some concerns, some things we would have to overcome with awareness and education, and I think Lieutenant Governor has even mentioned earlier, if someone contests that, the proof. But whatever we do, we definitely want to maintain the transparency, but that is something that we are having discussions with Federal Highway about.
Okay, we have a few minutes to wrap up, and I'd just kind of like to define some overarching goals that I think our committee might want to look at as part of this in our last few minutes so that we're prepared for our next meeting. So I'm hearing more planning, positive protection, maybe look at our delivery process, more contractor input, more worker input into how the work zones are designed for safety. Any other kind of overarching goals that we need to examine as part of this?
Extreme lane closure setups. Extreme lane closure setups. For like, if you, like how we're doing it is we're pushing the limit. We're doing an 8 p.m. lane closure, where normally we were never allowed to do that.
So would you call that positive protection in that you're establishing a buffer for the workers, or?
I would say just safer implementation of work zones by setting them up earlier, slowing the vehicles down. The positive protection I think would fall under what, the drags of setting up the lane closures.
Okay.
But, don't go off of typical times that we've had in the past, just because that's what it's always been.
So, Cedric and I have been beating that drum ever since the fall, and I think we are making progress in that, especially in terms of state highway operations. Jim, I'd welcome any comment from MDTA on your timeframes, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, so we have a routine sort of reevaluation, if you will, between our ops and our engineering groups to look at times where we would allow closures. So during the pandemic, we had obviously adjusted to get ourselves more time, and then since then we've kind of gone back and seen what we can do in order to kind of push that out and develop some cues early.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so maybe on a different frontier, more on a technology front, is states using the HOS system. We've kind of investigated that somewhat through Samsara, which is our onboard cameras for our drivers. So it is able to kind of push out warnings through all the different, whether it's Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waves or whatever, that when we deploy an attenuator, there's a warning that's shooting out to all these folks that are looking at their cameras and looking at their.
No, I'm just kidding.
I stole that from you guys, but we've been looking into it as well. It's like, it is a great idea. Why aren't we implementing that on all the construction, for all the construction firms that are out there, for MSP as well? I'm sure they've got that system probably, or using it or something probably a little bit more robust. But it's out there, it's easy, it is not that expensive, and it puts awareness out in the traveling public that there's something coming up that we want you to get your eyes on the road and your hands off your phones. And pay attention to what's out there, maybe it helps slow them down. So we're talking about, behavior change and what we can do for, across the board, not just on the bigger projects, smaller contractors, all contractors. So get it more inclusive to everybody.
All right, so let me challenge you. Does State Highway, State of Maryland need to update standards to require that, or is that a best practice that the contracting community can kind of share and get people to buy into?
I think we have to go a two-pronged front on that. I think as we go forward with new contracts, we can add money to that to make it a requirement, just put an allowance in. We talked about that at the forum of going ahead and setting up a safety allowance and let the contractors tap into that. If they see a better idea, don't make it always come out of their dime. You know, as a bigger contractor, we do a lot of that on our own, but the smaller contractors can't, and we can't forget about those folks. So moving forward, you could set an allowance up. On existing contracts, incentivize. Go ahead and share some costs with the contractors, or show them that there is some other software programs out there that they can implement. A lot of the trucks, whether it's aggregate, whether it's concrete, asphalt, they're all using camera systems. We're all watching what our folks are doing, and it's more so to protect our folks from the traveling public than it is to show our drivers' behaviors. A lot of those camera systems link in pretty easily to the HOS system as well. So instead of going out and having a bunch of different systems, we've got one platform that you guys use, a chart right now, and it works well. So why can't we look into that and make that work a little bit better across all of industry?
I have one last comment. So speed can be combated by a speed camera. Drunk drivers, distracted drivers can be combated by the movable barrier. Third thing I want to say is, you know, the cell phone carriers, we got to do something about if your phone's in your hand, I don't know. I mean, troopers doing enforcement, officers doing enforcement, is obviously not making a dent into the 70% of people that are traveling by these work zones with their phones in their hand. Don't know if big companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, you know, and the federal standard to somehow limit these technology things from, if the thing's in motion, somehow it will detect when it's being picked up and not allow you to get your phone. I know there's a safety factor involved in it as well, but that's the third element to this whole thing that I think work zone safety, we need to, you know, that's pretty much a nationwide, it's not something I don't think the state of Maryland solve, because we're not going to do that, but I think it will come from the Fed somewhere.
Okay. Thank you.
The main problem with that is you gotta figure out whether or not the person's actually driving the car.
Yeah, I had a question for I don't know if it was what Joe was talking about over here. I noticed when they're working on 895 and they have it shut down to a single lane or one lane each way through the tunnel. And as soon as you go in there, the radio stops and it says, hey, you know, the tunnel is in two-way traffic pattern, please pay attention, something like that. It gives us a warning. I'm wondering if there's a technology out there that maybe in a work zone, hey, you can put this at one end, and when you're entering the work zone, the radio stops and it says, hey, you know, wake up, pay attention, you know.
Yeah, we did.
Well, we have, that we use the radio rebroadcast system in the tunnel, so we actually take over the FM bands for 10 stations at this point, more in the future.
Okay.
And we broadcast what we need to, and it's part of the tunnel life safety system.
Okay.
So so we actually rebroadcast FM band.
Okay, now I'll take one more comment and then we'll.
I guess the only thing that I have to add is I don't know if what we've said so far deals with the aggressive driver, the one that's going in and out of our work zones to hopscotch through traffic, the ones that are riding up the shoulder all the way up to the crash cushion and then darting back in. How, is there something that we can do in operations and in our technology that we can deal with the aggressive driver? Because that's the one that's gonna be killing the most people. How are we dealing with that? And can we? And I'm at a loss.
Anyone have any? No, fantastic point. I think we're all at a loss for some of that. So yeah, there's only so much we can put on the roadway, and that's why the other committee with driver behavior is so important as well. So there are two components. So I think we need to tackle it on multiple fronts. So.
Hey, I would like to add, is there any reason why we're not enforcing? I know we've got some resource issues, we all do, and I know you guys do as well. Is there a reason why we're not enforcing the current speed limits, speed zones out there? I know there's only so many places you guys can be, but we've got counties, we've got localities around the secondary, the other primary roads, and not on the interstates. I mean, why aren't we pulling drivers over where they're going 80, 90 miles an hour? I mean, from when I leave here to go back over to Darnestown, I'm sure I'm gonna be passed by at least a half a dozen people going plus 80 miles an hour. Sometimes they'll blow right by a trooper, or sometimes they're blowing right by, MDTA officer, sometimes they're blown by a local officer. They're not being chased. Is there a reason why? That's the question. I know you can't answer it, Jerry, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, and I think that's something, continuing discussion with MSP, it's just something we have to continue as an industry to look at. I think automated speed enforcement is great and it works in certain locations. I do think we need enforcement as well, because they also have the, correct me if I'm wrong, the option to double your fine in the work zone, which automated speed enforcement doesn't really have. So I think that's an important goal. So, we are wrapping up here. Vicky's going to get very anxious. But when would you like our next meeting? So, Lieutenant Governor Mike invited us all out onto the one of the interstates at nighttime to see what it's like in a work zone. And volunteered to have us all wear hard hats and see for ourselves. That's like. So, I think we'll plan a field trip, Mike. We'd also like to invite the driver behavior group to come with us, and then we have to plan for a meeting. So I guess we'll send out calendar invitations. Vicki is my wonderful special assistant upstairs with me, so you'll be hearing from Vicki about our next meeting. So thank you, everyone, and I think we're going to head over to the main room, and Lieutenant Governor Miller will wrap up for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you all once again for joining us today in this inaugural meeting. Already we've seen the start of productive discussion in the two subcommittees that will address the root causes of work zone crashes. I actually stopped by in both of these and heard some terrific ideas already and, concerns that individuals had shared. And when I went to Terry's group, a lot of discussion was about one of the most dangerous times in a work zone is when you're actually setting up the work zone, right? Putting up the cones and doing what you need to do. And that is one of the most dangerous times. And I also heard that, putting the cones behind the truck, that's another danger zone as well. And a lot of discussion about, can we get more cameras up at various locations, and what do we do about distracted driving, speeding, aggressive driving, so many elements like this. And I'm happy to say that Mike from Concrete General has invited the group to come during a nighttime work zone to see what it's like to be out there. I know I'm on board. I want to go see exactly what people during construction zones are dealing with day in, and in this case in the nighttime, to really understand that. And I think if you're there actually on the ground, you'll have a much better feeling for exactly what's happening to them. So a lot of great ideas coming out, and Mike had actually suggested as well that is there any way that we can work the state police, MSP, with the county police, with the local police, municipal police, to kind of work all hand in hand together, because there's just not enough workforce to be able to be monitoring and enforcing at every work zone. So these are some, really good ideas, I think, that came up. So as we've also seen in what the process of setting up and removing work zone looks like, we can know where we are starting from and exactly what we need to do to change, to make our work zones safer. So today is just the beginning of this work. I look forward to continuing to meet with members of both groups and develop recommendations that will protect workers, drivers, passengers, law enforcement agency members, everyone in the ecosystem of a work zone, whoever comes within that perimeter. How do we protect everyone in that area? This is an issue that we cannot solve alone. It's going to require partnerships. It's going to require ideas from different sectors, whether it's in MDOT or consultants or construction crews or law enforcement. That's why every one of you as experts has been asked, to call for take action in this group and to share your expertise, your ideas, best management practices, your insights with this group. And we're really looking forward to that. So we're looking forward to listening and working together in partnership with every one of you. That is the purpose of the Work Zone Safety Group, as well as the subcommittees. And through this partnership of law enforcement with law enforcement officers, highway safety experts, engineers, labor leaders, and workers, we can create actionable change to keep Maryland workers safe. So I want to thank all of you again for taking the time to be here. Please know that this is just the beginning of the dialogue, and we're going to continue this discussion until everyone within a work zone safety area feels safe, better than they do today, and how we can save more lives. And I thank you for all your expertise. Thank you.